Daniel Khalife and the poor security of prisons. Welcome to Mark and Pete. Here's a thought.
A jailbird is always eagle-eyed, while ruffling feathers all alone. But if the cage door is left open wide, don't be surprised when it has flown. Yes, the details of Daniel Khalife's escape raises serious issues, doesn't it, about the security of His Majesty's prison services, particularly in Wandsworth. Now, what we have seen over the last few days is that finally Daniel Khalife has actually been captured, but in slightly unusual circumstances. It appears that the 21-year-old former soldier is now due to appear in Westminster Magistrates Court, but crucially, he was captured by a plainclothes policeman whilst riding a bicycle. He was only away for 4 days and actually was caught only within a few miles of the prison itself. Clergyman Pete, I ask you, whilst this man has been on the run, it's raised many security concerns, particularly in the community. Worse still, it raises questions about the entire prison service. What needs to be done to secure it?
Well, yes, I just agree with you that this it just seemed to have been too easy to, or at least he seems to have engaged in what you would normally have thought of as some sort of comedy sketch in order to get out. It just doesn't seem to be credible that he could get out in this simple way. Now, we're talking about, I think, quite rightly, the poor state, the poor security of British prisons are highlighted here. There's a couple of points I raised. One is that he wasn't in the most secure form of prison, and yet the reason he was in prison was for terror-related offences. Now, you'd normally be in a very secure prison. And the second point I'm making, there's quite a high percentage of Muslims in prison. Now, we don't know if he's a Muslim, but he is Iranian, and his father's Iranian, his mother's English. But what we can say, I think, pretty much for certain, that his actions would make him a real hero for the Muslims. So he would have a lot of help. In England and Wales as a whole, the percentage of Muslims in prison is 14%, but there's only just over 4% of the population. So you can see they're overrepresented. But it's 24% in the London area. So there's a large number of Muslims, and a lot of them jihadi, that is to say, people who are either aiding or actually engaged in terror on behalf of Islam. And so they would regard him as a hero, so they would help him. And it seems to me, just looking at the raw facts, that he was helped in getting out.
Yes, well, he's actually accused of trying to spy for an enemy state. Yeah, that was the original reason why he was brought in.
For Iran,
effectively, the plotting of a fake bomb hoax at MOD Stafford. Well, of course, obviously, he's now added to his woes by obviously escaping, so that's another factor. Not that he's too worried about that, but crucially, the point being is that the way that he actually got out was through a delivery van that was actually providing food for the prison. And he managed somehow to escape from the kitchens, which is where he was working, and secrete himself underneath the vehicle, which was sadly not checked. So again, there was a failure in procedure. Now, of course, the thing here is, as Clergyman Pete, I ask you that we know that some of our prison services are sort of creaking both in their condition. So some of these are very much Victorian prisons, and Wandsworth is one of those. Now, here's the other thing. Creaking walls and creaking doors, etc., is one thing, and facilities, but not having the right staff. Now, there's a worrying and a very alarming statistic, isn't there, which is that a high percentage of prison officers who are meant to be there to sort of look after these these prisoners, are resigning at an alarming rate. So it's not just the fact that there are procedural issues here, it's trying to attract the right type of people who can actually uphold the service.
Yes. I mean, when you've got morale low like that, you're going to have mistakes made, aren't you? It's not just that you're not getting in the highest caliber of people. It's rather those who care. It's partly that those who care, they will be the ones who are leaving due to stress. I believe the figure is that let me see. 3/4 of those who did leave in the past year left of their own volition, so they chose to leave. So you're seeing people who are just caring about the profession too much and choosing to leave. And the other thing is that when morale is that low, mistakes are going to be made. You're just not caring anymore. So these together need to be addressed, and the way they need to be addressed is by sorting out how prisoners are able to facilitate the sort of escape that we just saw. That can only happen if prisoners can sort of work together. I can't believe that it's just untenable to suggest that he managed to escape on his own, and other escapes are going to follow unless this is addressed. Now, I mentioned the Muslim population. It's not just that; it's gangs working together. Happen to mention Muslim gangs because they are very large within prisons, and also they the connection with Islam through Iran from this particular man's origins. But that's the problem. We need to have a better way of dealing with prisoners who are collecting gangs.
Here's a thought. Do you think now that there's, and again, there's a bit of investment, folks, but do you think it's a time where every prisoner should be tagged, irrespective of what classification they're in, whether they're in Category B jail or any other? So the point being is that you at least can track them down in a better way. That doesn't mean to say that you can't remove a tag, of course, but it's very difficult, folks. Do you think that there's a cause now to start to sort of look at those type of measures where technology can help?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that is one possibility, but that needs to be part of an overall change in the system. You can break up gangs. You can make people you could just thoughtfully place people together who are not going to work together. You don't have to have all the Muslims together, and that does seem to be the case in that they all seem to get together in prison. This is the reports that we get. So, and the reason for that is if you don't do that, maybe you're going to get a riot. Well, you do need to be able to clamp down on that sort of thing, and it will take investment, because it will take investment to increase the pay, increase the training, increase the benefits of prison officers, so you get high quality prison officers. That is, if you're going to keep with this overall system.
Yes.
As you know, I'm not a fan of the prison system as a whole. But if this is the method you're going to use for punishment, you need to resource it correctly. You can't expect now, you could see people leaving, so you're going to have the people who are left, plus, people who haven't been trained yet. You have new people coming in to replace them. Manning a lot of the prison officers are going to be new.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. They have £20,000. Yes, because that was effectively to have a reward for information leading to Mr. Khalife's arrest. Now, of course, we don't know the details, folks, but we know a plainclothes policeman was actually the one who actually captured Daniel. The point is that going to the police or is that going to some member of the public? Either way, £20,000 is a lot of money. But I think that now we just I think would probably recognise, and I'm sure that this is happening, that we definitely need to reevaluate the way that we put this in place. I agree with you, definitely, the observation that this gentleman should not have been in the type of jail that he was in, and clearly there were flaws in the process, so I think that's another factor. But I also agree that, when it comes down to the attraction of getting people, the professionals, into the system, I think that's, for me, equally as worrying. Now, the question is, I'd love to know what would need to be done to bring people into the system. It's not an easy job. There's a physical element to it. There's also the training that definitely needs to go through. It's not something you can do overnight, because you need to understand about behaviour. Some of the experienced prison services and those members who've been in this profession for a long time recognise the subtlety of human behaviour. So what they're saying is you can train new people to come in to understand the systems, the protocols, the laws, which is good, but you need to understand human behaviour about the signs.
Yes.
If somebody's behaving oddly or something like that.
I agree with that, and I agree with all that you said there, but there's also a more basic point in that there simply are too few prison staff. Now, I'm quoting here Peter Dawson, director of the Prison Reform Trust. Now, earlier this year, he said, there are too many prisoners and too few prison staff. More violence, self-harm, suicide, and less rehabilitation is happening. And he goes on to say that is where the government's love affair with imprisonment is leading. And the reason he says that is there is a publicly stated aim from the government that the prison capacity will increase by 20,000 over the next 3 years. That's not looking good, is it? Because they're not talking about increasing the number of prison officers.
Yeah.
There's too few staff already, and as Peter Dawson from the Prison Reform Trust says, that leads to really bad outcomes: violence, self-harm, suicide, less rehabilitation, and we could add to that prisoners escaping.
Yeah.
So,
I'm afraid so.
Now, I would say, just to return to a theme that I've introduced on our podcast before, that I mentioned earlier, that I don't think the whole system works. I think that there were quite a few crimes for which prison is not the right solution, not the right punishment, that are currently being given. People who commit these crimes are currently imprisoned. And I will put them in two sorts. One are very minor offences where it would be better for people to do some other form of restitution. Now, there are schemes to do this. They could just be increased or ramped up. You know, if you steal things, often the best thing to do, I would say, is to have to work to pay back what you have stolen, not be sent to prison. When it comes to people committing, for example, murder or violent crimes, the Bible says that if that is the case, deliberate violence kinds, assault and battery and this sort of thing, as well as murder, should be met with execution. And so I think that those are quite reasonable. And if we look at the way, I think that's reasonable, even though it seems shocking to us today because we made these moves towards removing the death penalty. But that's, if you just look about when that happened, that's then resulted in the hugely ballooning prison population, with gangs taking over them. You would remove that pressure if you executed people who deserve to be executed. I'm not saying for all crimes. I'm not saying for not returning your library book on time. Well, no, that's quite serious. But I'm not. I'm saying for those that deserve it. For example, certain forms of terrorism. Now, that would be a whole change in the way that we operated, what I've just said. But I think unless we do something like that, the only other solution is lots more police officers. Lots more prison officers, far more prison officers, and better training and resources for each individual police officer. That's more money, and we don't have it.
Well, the system is clearly creaking. Do not be surprised, folks, if another jailbird flies the nest. Closure and Pete, I think it's important to get our view of our listeners. What do they think about this? What should happen to the system? What do they want the government to do?
Yeah, let us know. Just make sure you're subscribed by going to markandpete.com. That'll take you to the page where you can leave a comment. As long as you're subscribed, you can leave a comment on this and every episode. We'd love to hear from you. But for Mark and myself, it's bye for now.